Meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission to order. I was going to begin by introducing our new member who isn't here, but will be shortly. We can move on to approval of the minutes from our last meeting, which was March the 7th. Any additions or deletions to those minutes? Have we read them, girls?
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Looks like it flies. We're good with we're good with the way it is, the way we received them. Public comments. We do not have a packed house today, so we'll move right on to old business and our marker. So if everyone would, do you want to step up here, Anna, since
Yeah, I
this
can
is
say
your...
a few words. So after we looked at the original verbiage for the marker application, I received a revision from Michael Zimney, the staff in Tallahassee for the Bureau of Historic Preservation, and he had revised it based on his experience with the markers and the Florida State Marker Council that actually reviews the verbiage. And then we had a meeting. It was a conference call. Just want to tell you all about it so you know the process. And it was really great. There are 3 members on the Marker Council. One is Dr. Valerie Jean Connor, who's a professor at Florida State University. Her specialty is, late 19th and earliest 20th century history. And then you had a Dr. Richard Estabrook, who brought the archaeology bent. And you had Mr. Jose Miranda, who has a Master's of Architecture at the University of Florida. So they also had a few comments on our marker verbiage. They really celebrated the fact that we were bringing this to them. And they were excited because they don't have many historic markers for historic districts. So that was an interesting fact that I didn't know. And of course, they said, we want you to bring more to us. But in the end, they approved it. They made very subtle changes. So what you have before you is the final verbiage. And they're just waiting on us to do this kind of formality so we can move forward and order the marker. As you know, the Historical Society's offered to pay for it with the TDC funds. And what's not on your verbiage is they will be credited. At the end, it'll say who it's sponsored by. So it'll be the Indian River County Historical Society, City of Vero Beach, Osceola Park, and the Tourist Development Council of Indian River County will be on there too, as well as the state of Florida.
And the Florida
Yeah, it's pretty long, but
it's like a book on a sign, actually.
It is. But lots of players in this historic marker. So,
well, at least we have it.
So that's all, and I guess it's in our ordinance, right? That marker verbiage needs to come before our board, and
yes, you have to approve those.
so have a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
I don't think I'm allowed
I'll
to
second. I'll second.
We have a scarcity of
You and
more
me,
bodies.
Anna.
You
are allowed to second.
You are allowed.
All right, all in favor of Anna's
Aye.
wonderful sign.
Aye.
All right. Wait.
Terry says you are allowed to second.
Yes, you need to vote.
All right. It carries. And we can't wait to see it.
Yes, and we're thinking of a dedication in the fall, and been talking to Monty Falls. He's approved the location as well, so we should be all set. I'll just need to get a signature from him today or tomorrow, and we'll go from there.
Marvelous, and thank you for staying on this and making it happen.
Yeah, it's exciting. Oh, what I forgot to mention, what's great too, is the state just started an interactive map and website for all the state markers. So we'll be able to send a link to somebody and they can go on their website and pull up the marker and the location. So they're really have a lot of new staff up in Tallahassee, and their goal is to improve in the technology area and that kind of public engagement. So, and that's it. Sorry.
Great, thank you. We share that goal. Speaking of goals, if we're finished and moving on to the update on CLG.
We received the CLG agreement from Michael Zimney, who is the certified local government coordinator, and there was a condition that we have an architect on the board before we could move forward with the application. So once we have the resume submitted from the new member, I'll forward that to Mr. Zimney, and we will be able to move forward with the application.
So that was the only criteria that we were missing?
That was it.
Okay. They brought that to our attention, or we discovered that on our own?
Michael didn't realize we didn't have an architect.
Gail, if you'll
That's
talk
because
into
we
the
all seem
microphone,
so
Hope can't hear you.
professional.
Hope can't hear you.
Microphone.
Okay.
We can hear you, though.
And then theoretically, how long is it going to take us to wrap this up? I feel like we've been watering this rock a long time.
I do. Yeah.
He said that once we send the resume and he just looks it over, we'll be able to move forward with the application process. And it goes to the National Park Service, and I believe it should be a short time after that gets sent to them that we would be approved.
At least by next year's grant cycle, so.
It's be like the sixth year we've
I
repeated
know.
that.
Well, we can
all
still
right.
apply for grant money. It's just that it won't be in the CLG pool, so.
Okay. All right. Good. Under the new business category, moving on here, Planning and Development Department matters. We have some items related to the ad valorem tax exemption. We've changed the language in the ordinance
No, we haven't changed the language
or
yet.
something. What if we
I
have
was
a
on
draft?
vacation. The staff provided a copy of the ordinance that had been adopted when they established the ad valorem tax exemption for
Yes.
historic property. So what the staff is
thought we
just
had
asking,
additions.
if you look on we have the ordinance in your agenda package. If you look at section 7666. Basically, the only properties that are eligible are those that have been designated on our local register. Those are the ones that are full protection. I'm thinking we're not getting a lot of demand for people to come in to get protected under the ordinance. And we have some historic neighborhoods. I think we need to provide some further incentives for people to make improvements to their house. So the staff's recommending that we amend the ordinance to allow any historic property that's eligible on the National Register to be eligible for this. Now, realize if you do go through this, they still have to come through you, and they will have a conservation easement placed in the house for at least 10 years. So I think we're trying to provide incentives for people to maintain and improve their historic properties. A lot of people do not want to be designated with those kind of requirements, but this would give them just another incentive. Now, whether it's going to work, we're not getting anybody now. I think this would be helpful to do it, just another tool for us to use.
I have a comment. I was actually going to bring this up under members' matters because obviously we do have an engagement issue going on here with historic homeowners. And I came up with an idea that I was going to bring up, and I'll get into that. But I do have a concern. Possibly, I'm thinking about this as far as giving incentives to a historic homeowner, giving a tax incentive, and not having them, I guess, designated as historic, because if we've given them that incentive, are they still having to follow the guidelines for rehabilitation for the work? I
Yes.
assume, yes.
Yes, remember,
Right.
anybody that comes in that does this, their plans will have to go up to the state. The state will be reviewing this, so they're going to have to meet all the guidelines.
Why is the state reviewing it?
Because we don't have a staff to.
Okay,
We don't have.
okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I
I'm
used
sorry.
to do
I
that
didn't
part,
mean to be,
so.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we'll have to have the state review the rehab tax credit applications. And then at that point, they could sell the property and someone could still demolish it without a review process, or even could make a change to that house without a review process. That is what that's my only concern is,
Change of ownership?
You could have a change of ownership. It could be the same
demolition.
owner. What the designation does is it provides a process for review of the changes.
Right.
To make sure they're in keeping with the guidelines. So I think per the ordinance, in order to get the rehab tax credit, their work will still have to follow those guidelines. But what happens after that point? They're not designated as historic and they've gotten that tax rehab credit. I just think we need to think about that. What's going to happen?
Is there a way
Now,
that
what
it
are we
could be-
proposing here? Are we proposing that they would be entitled to the tax credit without designating their house?
No, they're going to
ever in the
have a
process?
covenant placed on the house. Okay,
Okay.
I wish you had called me.
As of
I haven't
10
looked at the
years.
ordinance.
Okay.
I believe it runs with the property that time to get out of the designation. But I'll have to take a look at it. I don't know the answer right off the bat because I haven't had these come in. So.
Oh, that's okay.
I'm not quite sure I understand
But-
what
I didn't
you're
know I was going
proposing.
to have
Tim.
questions.
Yeah,
so-
well, no, what I'm saying
Have
is you're going to
discussion.
have, normally you're going to have to put a covenant on the house, okay? So you're guaranteed for so many years you have to maintain that, okay?
Okay.
All right.
For the
so-
10-year
but
period that
Anna,
you get the tax
Yeah,
exemption.
that's a good question, and I believe it runs continuing with the property. I think
Yeah.
on commercial properties, it's a little different. You can't, if you change ownership, but those are designated under another.
No, I'm not saying I'm against it. I'm just bringing it up as a
Yeah.
possible, issue. What happens after that 10 years runs out then, per se?
Yeah, there's
and
no,
it's still
there's
not
like no
designated
commitment being
historic.
made to the structure.
Yeah.
Could it be, Tim, that if tax credits are given, that the house is registered?
Pardon?
Could it be that if the tax credits are awarded, that it could then be registered, that it would have to be registered? Could we make that
Right.
requirement?
I believe if they do that, let me look at the ordinance. I
Well,
didn't-
what are you just thinking? I see you thinking this is a way to get the foot in the door. Well, advertise that tax incentive to try to get people's foot in the door to do the work.
Well, that's right. I'm looking at
Yeah.
the short term.
Yeah.
I mean, not the short term, the long term. We've got historic buildings out there. People are not coming in here to
Right.
get protection.
Right.
We've got issues coming up about insurance and the cost of doing things. We want the people to maintain the properties, not. So, I'm looking at changes in the code as well as these other changes to provide incentives for people to protect their house. Right now, they're not, we don't, this doesn't mean we're going to have a rush of people coming in here.
No.
Yes.
May,
But
may
right-
I interrupt? I feel like we are sitting here, maybe I'm wrong. I feel like we're sitting here spinning our wheels, but we need to be spinning our wheels out there. I wasn't here, unfortunately, for the P&Z workshop, but I did watch the televised version. I don't know how well attended it was. They never really showed you. I mean, you were there, you spoke.
At the first one,
Very
yes.
grateful that the most recent one. I feel like a lot of people aren't even aware of this. I mean, how many people are going to go to the website, operate beyond the first page, locate this information, try to decipher it? We need plainer language. We need more direction there. We need something more fascinating on our homepage. I've said this before. And then maybe we need to do, it would behoove us to do little neighborhood, just informational meetings where we could explain the benefits of designation. That's it. Because I
Okay,
feel like all of this good stuff that we have made available is just sitting here largely with the public largely unaware of what the potential is.
Okay, well, the biggest I'm looking at this now. Just because you change ownership will not affect that. They're still subject to that. You got a covenant running on that. The city can initiate proceedings to get the money back. There's a bunch of things. So I don't
Okay.
think that's an issue. The issue about the education is when we started this historic ordinance, we had numerous buildings that were eligible for that. We were going to automatically put them on there unless we had people send in letters to make sure their building was not on the local
But we
register.
also had a community concern at that time where one thought they were being targeted. So I don't
And
know
I
if the
know.
letters
Are you
came from
going
that
way back?
particular
Pardon?
Are you going way back?
neighborhood.
Not way back.
Well, let me move this in.
No, but excuse me.
Yeah.
I agree. You need some education on that. I'm not so certain that's the only thing to go because right now, unless this ordinance changed, I think you're going to have a hard time getting people to want to take advantage of the tax abatement program if you're going to
Yeah.
require that they have to
That they
have
designate.
a permanent designation.
Okay, I even
That's all
though
I'm
it's
saying, okay? I'm
yeah.
not-
So what
Yeah.
you're proposing today, and I'm sorry if I've misunderstood you, is that it will only endure that 10-year period.
Whatever the period of time on the covenant is.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It's agreed to.
And see, hopefully with other things that are happening and more investment in the community, you're going to have a groundswell of people, okay, if everything goes right.
Without torches.
Synergy happens here. We have
Well,
a new rebirth
I can
that,
see it in my
that all
mind's
comes
eye.
together, that you get investment in the community, that people are maintaining them, along with other regulations to keep for compatibility. You're going to get more of the stakeholders wanting to do this, and you're going to get more support for the things that need to be done to protect the historic things. Yes, Mr.
Tim, my concern is that
Yeah.
anytime we have, doesn't matter what it is, whether it relates to this commission or anything else, once you start watering down and diluting what your real goal
Intent
is,
is.
I think that I don't think it's a good idea, personally.
Well,
And I
just-
understand what
yeah.
you're saying in terms of trying to incentivize people to step up. I think that as markers go on houses, that's going to make a difference.
Well, I agree, but you've got to get the property owners.
Could this be?
May I ask you one
Yes.
question? I believe Fort Pierce, I think most of the ordinances allow eligibility. They don't require you to be on your local designation.
For National Register eligibility?
Yeah,
you
that's
mean?
all you, as long as you're eligible, you're eligible.
Yeah.
Most
The
of
issue is in Fort Pierce, when I administered
Yeah.
that ordinance, is they had to be designated. That's where
Okay,
I
so
was
Fort
coming
Pierce
from.
did that, okay.
Yeah, they did
But
that.
most of them
Now-
don't do it that way.
Right. No, you're right.
Yeah.
There is a law too that talks about you just have to be National Register eligible.
Right.
So you're right. I just wanted to think and discuss about that. Let's think
Sure.
beyond the 10 years. I think at the point we're at, I'm open to this idea. I actually am open as long as the original scope of work has to meet the secretary guidelines
Yes.
for rehabilitation.
It would have
Then
to.
it's going to come before our board. We're still going to get to review the work that's going to be done and then review the final work that's completed after the rehab. And so right then, why are they going to, change that? I mean, the intent is to follow the guidelines, and maybe during that time we encourage a historic designation and we get it.
I'm getting it. I understand the beauty of this now, and that is, it's like taking a concept and wanting to build it out as quickly as possible so that people can buy into it, because of course we're also visual. So if this enables us to get these neighborhoods cleaned up, looking the way they should be, by enjoying that 10-year period, then they will voluntarily understand that this is the right direction to move in.
Well,
and then hopefully we won't have many people defecting from the program, tearing down houses that have already been,
Well,
And
one
then
of
maybe the push
rehab.
would be to encourage them to
I like
to have their
this.
homes certified.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
think it'll be a catalyst. I think,
Okay.
Tim, it's a
Yeah.
good idea. I'm
No,
sorry,
well,
we jumped all
You know, we have to go
Yeah,
from
I'm
A
just
to
like,
Z.
wait a minute, what are we doing?
Okay, but one of the downsides of it, remember, the only tax exemption they're getting is from our ad valorem taxes.
Which
Right.
is not much.
It would be great if we could get the county,
What do we need
the
to do
county
to accomplish
to agree
that?
to do that.
What do we need to do to
Yeah, I
accomplish
mean,
I think if we move through, I would suggest that you would make a recommendation. Let's be sure we're on the same wavelength here.
Right.
And make a recommendation to the city council that we request the county commission to consider an ordinance to do that, a tax exemption, even if it's just for, I guess, assume they could do it just for our municipality, if they didn't want to open it up for the entire county. Obviously, politically, it'll probably be,
Prickly?
But they do
always a
tax
problematic.
incentives for business and business.
We have a
revitalization,
tax. We've done that for tax exemption for
the county
new
has.
businesses. We do.
So, yeah.
We do too.
Okay.
We've not had anybody do it so far, but we do have that.
Yeah. And the point of sale is the fact that you're getting buildings fixed up that are in
Yes.
bad condition.
Right.
So they're actually in the long run getting more tax revenue than they would, because otherwise the buildings could just be demolished and
Then you've got dirt.
Right.
Yeah, and then you got dirt.
And
so-
getting back to what the chairman said, I think if we move forward in this route, then I think we need to do that education program. You follow what
As
I'm
well,
saying?
concurrently, yeah.
Yeah, I
get
think
going.
to focus on it, that we've got these opportunities so people are aware of that and what they can do and can't do. Because there's still a lot of paperwork to go through this. I don't mean this is the
Is
easiest
there no way
thing.
we can winnow that down, even on their end? I look at
Well,
that
we
and I
have to
think
follow the
it's
Florida
appalling.
statute, so that pretty well states how you do these things. I mean, the only thing we could do is to save time if we had we were doing the reviews internally, but we'd have to have somebody qualified.
So, not to add a layer of bureaucracy, but it looks like to me in Section 76.69 that are these applications going to get administrative approval? I know you said something about sending them off to state, but are they going to come to our board at all for review?
Yes, they would have.
Because I want to make sure
They would
that's-
have to come to your board.
I didn't
Remember.
even- They tossed one out.
Remember, all these type of improvements all require a certificate.
The certificate of appropriateness.
Yeah, which you
That's
review
what I make
them.
sure.
Yeah.
So, okay.
They could
So
not be
even
done
though it's
in-
not
They just
designated,
think it
it's
was
still
coming
going to require
This
COA.
was-
Yes.
Okay. As
Because
long
it's a
as-
historic thing,
Yeah.
and if it isn't in
Yeah, I
there,
read
we
through
will
all of
change
it.
the
I
order to
just
make
didn't
sure
print it
that's taken care of.
And
But I
then that-
believe
Final work approval, typically, you would also, after they get their CO, or it might be just before actually they get their CO, there would be another approval sign off. So you might want to look at to whether you all want to do that or if you want to bring it back to the board again. So I'm just
what we're going to do,
saying.
and thank you, Anna. I think the ordinance will need, because this was written that they're already designated. So I think we will put in provisions to make sure, because I would not have this go through without your review. What good is
Yeah.
the HPC unless you're reviewing these things?
Right. that would
Okay,
be-
so we'll probably have to do that change too. So
Okay.
I hadn't looked at this, and that's why we had this discussion. I didn't want to go off writing until.
Well, I'm just
had
thinking
some-
since you said these would go off to
Yeah.
the state too, you may not be administering this internally
Yeah.
as well. So that final approval process, you might want to.
It still goes through a development review process.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think the way our ordinance reads, and I have to look at it, we have to make sure that these, even if they're not designated, but they want this tax abatement, I want to be sure that they're covered, so they would come before you anyway.
Okay.
Okay? And so we'll put in a provision however I do that. That's something to look at. Okay? Mm-hmm. What I'd like to do, if you don't mind, that I'll prepare something for the next meeting and make sure we check everything and come back to you. And, we can discuss this. I want you all to be fully behind it, or if it's no good, we just won't go forward with it. All right?
Okay. I think it's good.
So I didn't want to spring something on you, but I'm trying to think of ways to get things done. And
That's good.
after the meetings we've had in the neighborhood, we've got to find some ways to help provide incentives. And this is
Creative
just one of
dynamic.
them.
Yeah.
you know.
All right?
All right.
Hey,
Good.
thanks.
Thank you
You're welcome.
for worrying about this. So is that how we're leaving it for today?
Yes, I'll prepare something for our next meeting.
Okay.
And all right.
And maybe not let it languish too long. So
No, I'll do it over the next few weeks. So whenever
Okay.
you have your next meeting, we'll be
All
set
right.
to go.
So we're finished there. Chairman's matters. I'm gonna not tie us up today. I don't think I have anything to add here. I think I'm just going to open it up to members. We have a silent partner here. Would you like to speak today? We're fine. I keep waiting for you to jump in, and all women, so you're going to have to develop that skill if you don't already have it.
But welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for being courageous enough to be allowed to be dragged up here, if that's what it took.
No, I didn't take that.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your practice? And I did look briefly online. I know that you have spent some time in Kentucky. You
Lexington.
trained in Lexington, didn't you?
I went to university
Educated?
there. And
Yeah.
while I was there, I worked for a company called Phase 4 Construction. They were a huge firm, did historic preservation all over the state.
Mr. Ray,
I
would you?
actually worked on Henry Clay's home.
Well, I lived in.
I don't think your microphone's on.
I worked at the house on
At Ashland.
Ashland, yeah. One summer, that was my first job with Phase 4. And, I was up there with one of those hot irons, stripping, even though we weren't supposed to do that by statute.
You can confess now.
Yeah, exactly.
They can't get
The
you
same
now.
thing with the, tuck pointing the brick on the house, and they didn't want us to use grinders, and they wanted us to sit there and with a hammer and chisel. And
It's quite a place. I lived there for 5 years and was fortunate enough to lease what was the slave quarters in Mansfield, which was Henry Clay's son's home, which was just a few miles up the road from Ashland, so next to Shriners Hospital.
yeah, I know that well.
So I redid the Boxwood Gardens. I think it had 15 acres of formal
Really?
gardens.
Very nice.
Just unforgettable. Unforgettable.
Yeah, we did work on the Gaines's properties, and they bought a house down in one of the, I can't remember. I can't remember the name of the park, but it was just right off of downtown, and there were some massive homes. We did restoration on their house there and put in a little piazza in the back, and they collected all this, I guess it would be Asian art and just, artifacts. And we built a pedestal for a very old Buddha statue, and it was kind of interesting once they brought it in and set it on its pedestal. And so I did quite a bit of work. Worked at Calumet Horse Farm. Did all the bathroom restorations in the big house, and then we took one of the old outbuildings, which may have been a slave quarter. I wasn't sure if it was or not, but it was down over the hill from the main house. This was when D. Workowski, he picked up that horse farm for about $13 million. It was really worth about 26, but it was at an auction. And we turned the outbuilding into a gentleman's room, kind of a pool house with a cigar room and card playing room and a nice bathroom. So
He was quite a guy.
it was a good experience. And I also did a little consulting work on the side, talking with people who were thinking about working on their homes, and so it was good experience in Lexington. I enjoyed living in Lexington.
I did too. Well, that's a valuable background experience for your time here today. So
Yeah, and then after school, I lived in Charleston, South Carolina, and I worked there for a while. And then I lived on the Outer Banks. This was when I was doing my internship, and then I came to Vero Beach.
you're ready.
I'm ready. I opened up my own practice in 2009 because of the recession. I was kind of a guy
timing.
within a firm, and so I really didn't have any choice. So I've been practicing on my own ever since. We've done some pretty good projects so far. We did the bowling alley and, completely did that remodel. And I've done a lot of ocean fronts. Seems like that's the only thing going right now.
Well, as long as you're working, right?
That's
and
right.
attending your meetings.
A lot of ocean fronts.
That's the important part. Well,
I am working on an interesting project. I don't know if you remember P.V. Martin's,
Yes,
the old
yes.
restaurant.
They're finally doing something with that.
Well, we've got someone owns the property, and I think we finally got the letter to proceed to go to DEP with the new design and get the
A restaurant?
coastal.
Will it be a restaurant?
Yes, another restaurant, kind of a beach club type.
That'll do really well.
Yeah.
You've got such a huge population there, and nothing.
And
There's
nothing.
nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
From there on down. So.
From there on
Well,
down.
and then from there north too.
You got to.
Yeah,
There was
just
a.
make it till you get to
Let's take
7-Eleven.
business away from
Yeah,
the
right.
7-Eleven.
7-Eleven's going to go out of business.
What is it, Sharky's? There's
Yeah, Sharky's.
a lot of people from Vero go to that restaurant, the Bowie 12A.
Well, baby,
Yeah, right.
12A
yeah, it's a
Bowie.
great restaurant.
Yeah, it is.
It's worth the drive.
It is.
Such
And so-
charisma.
Yeah, but somebody like that who has a great menu,
Yeah.
not the best restaurant in the world as far as
Good,
the
good
building.
fish. Good seafood.
Right, yeah, it's not about aesthetics.
Be
there.
somebody to talk to about maybe coming in there and leasing the restaurant. We're going to have a little retail area too for people, because we're going to have a very large deck. It's about 4,500 square foot deck that faces the ocean.
Oh, my goodness.
So, people who want to walk the beach, who live across the street in the condos or down the street, they can come up, grab a paper and a coffee, go sit on the deck, read their paper, or they can go out and walk the beach. And so it's going to be a pretty nice project if we can find the wherewithals to
Put it all together?
put it all together.
Well, we'll be looking for it. Okay, thank you very much. It's great to meet you and to welcome you. And I look forward to doing some good work together with you.
I work for it as well.
Any other members' matters today?
I was going to bring up this idea, since we have this challenge with engagement and we have the challenge of the fact that the city is not able just to designate properties over an owner's permission. I was thinking, I want to know your thoughts actually on what if we were to identify, 4 buildings a quarter or something and come up with an invitation from the city, like an invitation to designate. We might look at the Gifford home and just let them know this building is historically significant. And we have this survey information, even though a lot of it's from 1990, it has the general information about the building. And we just invite them to designate their building or to come to our board meeting for a conversation about.
I think that's a great idea. And it's similar to my great idea, which was to do kind of a master list of the houses that we felt, since there are so few for this community, just a master list of all the houses that we feel are in that upper tier that are the most critical. And to, again, invite or at least make the homeowners aware of the fact that these are the houses that make Vero Beach what it is. And these are the houses that also, are you aware of the fact that we have, ad valorem tax incentives, that we have, just give them the whole list, the whole gamut of advantages to designation.
Yeah, and what it means.
And what it
because that's
means
their
and
major
how it's
concern.
changed other cities and how it's changed and turned around the economy in other neighborhoods.
And I'm sure, there'll be lots of conversations with Gail, at that point. Let's hope, anyway, that they'll respond. And
So the mechanics of doing this, again, is this something you
Still
put
have
on
to start
a
with the
website?
list.
Is this something that you
start
do
with the list,
mailing?
but I don't want to hold it up for the list either, because all of us can name 4 buildings, that
Right.
we could address. So if you want, I can draft something for our next meeting and run it by all of you.
I'd love to get started doing
We already have a
something.
historic survey, so I think it's in a database form as well. I'm not sure. So that list already exists. There just may be some buildings on there that are not contributing anymore or may be demolished because it's so old. It's from 1990. But I think pretty much everything that we would consider significant would be on there, of course, except for the mid-century modern buildings that weren't taken into account during that time. But I'm just wearing my preservationist hat, so that's what's coming next is mid-century modern. Just letting you know.
There was one house as you came into town on Route 60 at one time. I think it was called Vita Serena. Do you all remember that house?
That was the Gibbons
yeah.
property.
Yeah. I was always hoping that could have been put on the charter, but
They sold the land to the developers.
they sold the land to developers. That's right.
There was no incentive for them to do anything with it.
And then
so-
no one did anything with it other than tear the building down.
Yeah.
That was a big loss, I think. It was a beautiful property.
Been quite a number of things like that in this community.
Yeah.
That one was especially visible, but there have been
Yes.
a number of properties that's happened.
Again, then I
How
think
many designated properties do we have?
a handful.
How many designated? We only have one single family,
We have one
and then
single family.
we have a number. I think there's maybe 10 or 12, something 12 or 15 total. It's on our
around there,
website.
yes.
Have all of the buildings that belong to the city been certified?
All the ones that were eligible in the city that have been, they're designated, yes. Covered, like the diesel plant, the women's club, all the ones that,
And I think we might want to approach Mr. Brackett again, because at that time I think he did not want to designate.
he didn't.
Yeah, so that
And
might be another.
What was his reasoning? Do you recall?
I don't know what his reasoning is. I think most of the time, I dealt with, I forgot what house was that I forgot what was in it. It was a lawyer's house. It was the old one up on 10th, was it 10th Avenue? Kent.
Yeah, that one
And
they
they were trying to sell the house, and they just couldn't sell it with if it was
It was on the
designated.
National Register
So
already.
it's still on the National Register,
Yeah.
but they didn't want to be on the local register.
On 10th?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember. Is it not Merrill?
2-story. I'm trying to remember the name
Yeah,
of it now, too.
we've got it in our file, but I mean that's what happens. So
Yeah, it's just concern.
It is.
There's misinformation. And so I'm thinking this is a great way to start the conversation, because that's what we're not doing. There's no way to start this conversation with people. They're sitting in their historic homes and they're not thinking, oh, let me designate it necessarily.
To protect it.
Yeah, it's just another way to start the conversation.
Or what about even a newspaper article saying these properties are vitally important? And just
Yeah, if we got media coverage on the designation program, I
why
don't know,
not?
does the city come up with, can the city promote the program from within? Do you send out press releases to talk about our local designation
I
program?
believe we did when we first did this, but we certainly could follow up on that. I think with this effort, with these changes, then that's an opportune time to do that as
to
well.
attach that?
To do that, yes.
Okay, so then it would behoove us to go ahead and come up with a list.
Oh, I think the list
Can we
you're
make that
talking
our
about makes some sense. I mean,
Summer project?
right. But what I was saying on if we make these changes in the ordinance, I think that's a good time. Once we go through that, that's when we can really hit the education part of that, because it opens it up to many more buildings. Doesn't mean you can't go ahead with this idea that Ms. Brady brought up. I think that makes some sense.
The Judge Gregory House, I think that was it.
That's it. I
knew it was-
I couldn't remember. It had something to do with law.
I
but
knew it was
couldn't
in my
remember.
brain.
Do you have a street address?
Pardon
Do
me?
you have a street address?
No.
No. Okay. I'm trying to visualize what that is.
Stacy's going to buy it
Put it on my list.
on her way out the door today. So to facilitate that, what do we need to do? Anything, Anna?
To facilitate which
Banana?
part? So
Just
press release,
Either the press release, the
they can work on
identifying
internally.
the houses,
We
all
could
of them
ask
or
Gail
four of
for
them.
this, if there's a spreadsheet in Excel of the historic resource survey. If not, we might be able to get it from Chip up in Tallahassee, who deals with the master site file. And
know
if you
we
need
have-
me to do that, I can do that.
Well, we do have hard copies of the file.
But I think
Yeah.
we were looking for just a general list, and then every quarter or something we could pick some off that list. And
Okay.
we'll obviously have to make notes, sent them a letter. And then I'll work on a draft of a letter that you all can review. I can send it
Wonderful.
to Tammy and Sherry.
Thank you. That would be most helpful.
Well, did you want to make the decision at a meeting then of which building people you're going to invite?
I think so.
Yeah, and you can discuss it and why you're. Okay.
I can't
I'm
imagine
not
why we
trying
wouldn't
to-
follow her recommendations, but
I know.
No, but I thought it would definitely come from all of us, and we'd
Yeah.
come up with 4 or something, or whatever you all think. I just,
Okay.
sure. So when we
It'll be a
select those
forum.
4, should we have, a grouping of all of them in their entirety, or should we just start doing this arbitrarily?
that's a good question. So they know that we're asking certain other folks.
Like, we're doing
Certain
it
other
in a
people.
sequence. Like
You mean like pick
the
a
most
neighborhood?
important first, or just dive in?
I think.
I'm sorry, I'm making this more complicated than it needs to be, but
Well, I think we each bring some ideas, and then we'll have to hash that out.
Okay.
I think we'll hash it out. I don't think it has to be the most significant. You may know somebody that you think might be interested in designating their historic home, but it's not the most significant in the city, but it's still worthy of designation. Well, that may be more likely than somebody who lives in the most significant home who there's no way they want to designate it. You follow me?
I follow you too, but I always feel like there's some value because people are going to be more attentive as something takes off, to having the houses that are the most striking, the ones that are going to look the
Okay.
most dramatic when they're redone, because then people go, wow, to think, that looked like that before and now it looks like this.
Well, that makes sense. So if
So
you make that the priority, but then if you know somebody who might
Oh, yeah, of
wanna
course, we
designate
want
them.
Those
get our
may
You
be
might
the-
include
those
that
may be
too.
the exact people that are like, I don't want to designate my house. The ones that have the most promise,
Right.
you know, that would be the most dramatic before and after. They maybe not be interested.
And we may even do a workshop this year at some point to invite people to learn about historic designation and some of the history of the buildings here. We could do a PowerPoint on some of the most significant buildings and talk about
I think that would
historic
be
designation.
hugely valuable. Should we do them
So-
for each neighborhood and like on site somehow, or?
I think we just need to do, with the resources and everything, it'd probably just end up being one workshop, general workshop, and see who attends. And at that point, you know, if it's overcrowded, then we can reach out to different neighborhoods. But that's just my opinion. It doesn't have to be the way it's supposed to be. What do you think?
I thought it might be more inviting if we broke it up, you know, small bites, rather than try to convert everybody at one
Yeah.
time. Bring the gospel.
What
to
does staff
everybody.
think on the possibility of?
Well, I think that's not a
Any
bad
of
idea. I mean, I might suggest you look at priority where you think some neighborhoods, if you're going to do it more localized, where you think the benefits, you know, would be the best to the, you know, through your education program.
Do you have the
Me-
resources for neighborhood meetings, though?
Well,
That
I
we- or
mean,
can we incorporate
any
it
meetings we
into-
have with, remember I explained that it will require, you know, the clerk's office and everybody else to be involved because
Yeah.
it'll be a public meeting. So do I want to have a bunch of public meetings? Not really. But if we could,
You'd rather go on a cruise?
if we could, and I don't think, you know, but if we could have one that we could get the press, you know, get the media involved and all that, to have a general workshop that deals with some of these, you know, I think maybe the citywide one would be maybe what you want to do. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
or concentrate on maybe a couple of inner city neighborhoods that you think you'll have the most impact that, you know, than you have. You deal with some of these homes like out in Riamar. That's where we had the most.
No, I'm
You
not
know?
looking
You had
towards
some,
the
you had
beach
some
area.
tremendous misinformation there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
I
don't
agree.
think that.
I mean,
I don't think
you
that's
try
gonna
to
be-
explain that, and
They were, yeah, there was,
yeah,
yeah.
And I think that area, they can, whatever we're trying to do
Yeah.
here, they can watch and see, and if they're interested. But I think it came out loud and clear, at least in 2008 when we passed the ordinance, that they weren't interested at the time. But some of the media,
But again, I
as we
think
get
that
the
was
information
bad
out,
timing.
That was,
Poor
well,
information.
but really bad information.
Yeah.
And one particular neighbor who got everybody stirred up.
oh yes,
Yeah.
I do remember that name.
That just had, she just made a decision and it was
I
totally
know.
incorrect, but they all listened to her. 'cause
I know.
She's kind of scary.
Well, and that's why I think a letter. You know, if you addressed a home in old Riamar where it was a letter inviting them, saying your house is historically significant, would you like to consider a historic designation? I mean, what?
Yeah, I think
Does that
that's,
hurt?
that's
So.
appropriate, and I think it'd be a wonderful way to do it. So those letters will be issued from us from here.
From the can they come from our commission?
Well,
through
you
the
could do
planning
it.
board?
We could
Yes.
give you some support. They can come from the commission.
I think that would be the best.
you know, with
approach.
your, you know, the chair would sign
Yeah.
the letter.
Yeah,
I mean, it looks official. Yeah. Hey,
it is
No
official.
eyebrows. It is. Thanks. All right. So I'm excited. I think that's the way to go. Finally getting some movement. So between now and our next meeting, you will,
I'll draft a letter.
okay,
okay.
Get it to all of you.
perfect. New guy, anything? Any additions, anything?
Are we going to have the list next time too? The list of the possibilities?
Yes, we'll work
Okay.
on that.
All right.
They might just be addresses. That's the problem.
Well, that's okay.
Well, actually, if we could get that list before the meeting, that would be great.
Gail, if you don't have
We
time.
can just,
So let's.
you know,
I'm going to
then
shoot
we
for
have
it.
some research
Yes.
that we can do.
No,
Yeah.
yes, I think
Instead of
that would
kinda
be
getting looking
helpful
at
so you're not
addresses.
hitting
I'm pretty
lines.
good about
Yeah,
figuring out where
I
stuff
agree.
is, but
Yeah.
it would be good to have it
Well, you
ahead of
can
time.
go on the property appraiser too, and although that's hard to search, Google
almost
Maps
need
is
to
probably
do-
better.
You almost need to have that information at hand and then just drive by
Go
and do
for
a
a drive.
visual.
Yeah, that too.
So
That's my
Yeah.
I mean, are we
Favorite.
allowed to do that together? Or would
No,
you do that?
we can't do
Together,
that
or just do
together.
it individually. Make notes.
But I
Some
can't
shit
add
is
an
over there.
individual photo to the spreadsheet. I mean, we have the historic resource survey here, but it's not going to have an up-to-date photo. I think individually you're going to have to do your own reconnaissance.
Okay, well, we might be able to do some help here. If we get a list of depending on how many properties you're doing, we could try to pull some stuff from our side, like to have
Yeah, if
that
a photo
available.
comes along with it.
Right.
Yeah.
If there is a photo.
Without it being too comprehensive.
Yes.
I mean, you can
Okay.
stick a photo in a spreadsheet, but that's a lot of work.
I would assume you use some discretion on how many properties you're going to identify in this, or are you going to?
I was just suggesting we start with the survey since we have a list already.
Okay, so you
some
mean
of
the
those
whole
buildings
survey?
are demolished. That's what I said. Some
Oh,
of those
okay.
buildings are demolished. Some of them are not contributing anymore.
Yeah,
So
how
you'll have
quickly-
to do your own
where-
reconnaissance.
Where is that list? How readily available is that list?
I don't know if we have one. I'm thinking not, but so I have to reach out to the master site file department up at the state. So I don't know how long it's going to take me to get it, but they do. They can produce it for me.
We have a hard copy of it. I forgot how
Yeah.
many pages are in it. because we
I
used
believe
that.
anyway. I'll have to look into it.
Plus what Anna added when she did her update. That's the only
Yeah.
areas that have been updated.
Right.
And I
Since
have
then.
that list. So you're saying that is not complete. That's just when
original
Anna did
town
the-
and Osceola
That's just
Park.
that. And the other one, as you said, goes back to 1990. So therefore, as she said, we're now into a different,
Okay, so the 1990 list needs to be updated.
Oh, we
Yes.
need
Oh,
an
yeah.
updated survey.
And-
that's
period.
why we talked about we needed an updated survey. I mean, that's been the issue.
And when I was in Tallahassee this spring, I was told that if our survey is over 20 years old, we can apply. It's a grant funded project. We can apply for a grant to update our survey.
And that's what we need to do.
So
That's
a
why
good
we need the
idea.
CLG. Yeah.
What is involved in producing an updated survey? How is that accomplished?
hiring a CRM firm in order to do the survey and report.
So it isn't something you could do with a ragtag bunch of volunteers. It's something at college kids. It has to be.
It's nice to have a professional hiring a cultural resource management firm or an architectural historian to come in and do. They do it all over the state, and
I'm just
just
trying
easier to
cut
have them
expenses, but
come in.
that is the way it's conventionally done.
yeah, there are some people that work with volunteers and try to do it, but do we have the resources to do that either? That's
Well,
time.
well,
and-
it's summertime, and I know a lot of college grads that are sitting around
Mm-hmm.
occupying space. So
Well, you get
We don't
into
have any
coordination and you get a protocol.
Training.
And I totally agree with what Anna's saying. We
I
need
just
to
don't know
have a
who's
person.
going to train
Yeah.
them. I'm not going to be able to have the time to train
Yeah.
them.
see, I don't know what's involved as far as.
Usually use
you-
an architectural historian or historic preservationist like myself. And so if you
Yeah.
know somebody that has that background, then yes, they could potentially do it for us if they want a volunteer project, which I knew you had known some students that had background in preservation.
They are already professionals,
Yeah. So-
working out of state. So
Archaeology, even some archaeologists. So. All right.
speaking of archaeology, any news there? Do we need to be attentive to the
Big dig.
big dig? Anything at the
Did they just
site?
finish up? Didn't they just finish
Yes,
up?
they just finished up.
Are they in the reporting process? Have they?
Well, I think
spoken
they're in
with
the
you recently?
analysis and whatever they do. I mean, on that. So, I mean, what you've read in the press is basically what you have so far. So they have to take a lot of the materials back, do their work.
Nothing exciting there, huh? Anything else? Before we say goodbye, next meeting.
Okay.
Schedule.
We don't have a meeting scheduled.
We don't have a meeting
No.
scheduled.
Are you saying you
That's
want
what I'm
to
saying.
schedule
Yeah,
one?
shall we? I mean,
I don't-
since we have some things
I think
to
it would
do.
be good to set a date. That gives us.
A
I'll do
time
my
frame.
job. It gives me a deadline, and Anna.
Deadline.
If we don't do that, things
Yeah.
tend to slip.
We don't want to get lazy. So what sounds good? What is your recommendation, Tim?
Oh, it's up to your schedule.
So this-
Sherry, do they normally meet on?
I think they were changed to meet as needed.
Okay.
There's not a set day or or
So I think you all
anything,
need to decide.
So you're thinking August?
I'm thinking August.
Okay.
Let's
but you guys
pass
can pick
over
a date,
July.
and then if it doesn't work, I'll
Yeah.
let you know.
Do we want to start meeting routinely early in the month as opposed to the end of the month, which has been our any
I'm
complications
open.
for you in your schedule, or
Not really, but end of August, if we're thinking August would be better for me this year.
then early?
But anytime after August, we could do late in the month is fine with me.
Or early doesn't make any difference.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
You know, I think early August is going to be a problem for me. So
Yeah.
should we shoot for maybe third week of August?
So that Thursday's the 21st.
That should be fine with me.
Is that a planning and zoning board
I
Thursday?
don't have my calendar. I don't know.
And I
That's
didn't
why I
bring
said,
my-
but they meet at 9:30 anyway, so.
Okay, as long as
that
it's in the
won't
morning,
interfere
that's
with-
fine. Yeah.
So let's say tentatively August the 21st.
Okay.
Yes, 9:30?
Okay.
Okay. All right, we're in.
We're all here with our iPhones.
Okay. All right, friends, art preservation friends, this meeting is adjourned unless, is that it? Going, going, going.